Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Chris, the podcast. I am Matthew Farrenby, and I'm here with my dad.
Sunny Farumbi, welcome.
And the intro here I'm seeing is, if a tree falls in the forest with no one around, does it make a sound?
Yes, that's a question for you. So if a tree, I'm sure you've heard that before, right?
Yeah.
If a tree falls in the forest with no one around, does it make a sound? What do you think?
I mean, why would it not?
Explain why do you think it makes a sound?
I feel like there's more reasoning for why it would than it wouldn't. Usually people ask that question is the world even real? Like, is this a simulation? Is this like...
No, that's not the reason I'm asking this one.
Yeah, but I mean, there's no reason why it wouldn't make a sound. It's why, if it makes a sound when you're there, why would it not when you're not there?
Well, I submit to you that if a tree falls in the forest with no one around, it does not make a sound. And this is not simulation or whatever it is that you're saying it is. Let's unpack this. What sound? What is sound?
It's literally just airwaves, frequencies. Like,
Okay, disturbance of airwaves, frequencies, and then what?
and then what do you mean?
No, is it any disturbance of... I'm sure as we are sitting here, there are all kind of airwave disturbances around us that you and I are not hearing. Why is that?
Because our ears can't pick it up.
Why can't our ears pick it up?
I don't know what you mean. I still don't get where you're going with this. This doesn't...
Okay, here's the thing. You're right. Sound is made by airwave, disturbance in the airwaves that is tuned to a particular frequency of a human ear. So there are a series of things that needs to happen to produce sound in a human ear. So you have a tree falling, disturbing the airwaves. Those airwaves travel to the eardrum of a human being.
Mm-hmm.
And then it hits the eardrum, it hits the waves, it's translated into signals that goes to the brain that the brain recognizes as sound, right?
Mm-hmm.
So all of those things need to be in place, all of those channels.
Well, sound is sound whether you hear it or not, though.
No, but that's what I'm trying to say. You don't hear it.
If you don't hear it, it's still a sound, though.
It's not a sound if you don't hear it.
Why
is sound?
Why would it not be a sound if you don't hear it?
A sound is something that somebody can perceive.
Yeah, but what if one person hears something and someone else doesn't hear it, so it's not sound then?
How can somebody, the human ear has a frequency range that it picks.
Yeah.
Every human ear has the same frequency range.
Well, some people have better hearing than others, so
I
that's
agree.
what I'm saying is...
I agree. But what I'm trying to say is this. To create a sound that is interpreted as sound, there's channels. You're an electrical engineer, so you know this. Everything travels through a medium and a channel. If you take away one of those medium or media,
But I don't think...
it breaks the chain.
Yeah.
It breaks the chain. The sound wave does not travel all the way. So it's the same thing. When you remove the human ear, which is part of the channel that translates the sound, there's no sound anymore.
For you, there's still sound. Sound isn't an ability to hear. Sound is just you literally described that it's the disturbance in airwaves. So whether you hear it or not, it's still making a sound. You're just not there to hear
It is not making a sound. It's only...
No.
What you are describing is just airwave disturbance.
Which is sound.
It's not
Sound
sound.
is not our ability to hear. Is what the object makes.
No, that's not sound. That is not sound. It's just a disturbance of airwaves.
That
It is
literally
disturbance-
is sound.
It's frequency. No.
Depending on the frequency is our ability to hear it.
Exactly.
Yeah, so that's
But
not. It's still sound.
Sound still depends on the medium. It depends
Yeah.
on all the different pieces in the medium to convey those disturbance of waves. If you remove any one of them, the chain is broken, the signal is not passed along. No sound. There's no sound made. And in this case, the human being is part of that medium. So if there's no human there with an ear to be part of that medium, you do not have
You're just
sound.
saying you don't hear it though. I think you hear that sound. I don't know if I subscribe to that.
Yeah, I know we won't agree on this, so that's okay. I'm just telling you, it is not. It does not make a sound.
I think it still does.
Okay, let me ask you another one. Something similar. and I guess we're not planning on this one. Have you seen a rainbow before in the sky?
Mm-hmm.
A rainbow. So if you go outside, there's a rainbow in the sky. If you go outside and I see a rainbow, I say, "Oh, Matthew, look at that rainbow," and you look at it. Do you think we're actually looking at the same rainbow, or
What do you mean?
different things? Are we seeing exactly the same thing?
Well, you can't see exactly the same thing because we have
Why?
different eyes. So
Yeah, no, it's not about the different eyes. Is it? Are we actually seeing? Let's say we have the same eye, if possible. No, our eyes are different, but are we seeing exactly the same? If you look in the spectrum, if there's a way for us to distill down the colors in the spectrum of the rainbow to the different maybe pixels, if you can call it that, will you say we're actually seeing the same color of the same pixel in the same spot at exactly the same time? Will you say that?
I don't know. I mean, I don't really understand what you're asking.
I'm just saying, are we seeing the same thing?
I mean, that's so subjective, though.
How? How
Because it's like
subjective?
I don't know how to explain it. You could say you're seeing the same thing if it's similar enough, but I don't know what your range of the same is in this context. So
No, let's say that we are able to. Okay, let's say you and I are machines. So we have machine tuned to be able to pick out the color and everything. So if you are there, I'm here, and we are looking two machines. So take out the human factor out of it, and that's what you're saying. Take out the human factor out of it. How bad somebody's side is compared to the other one. You have the same machine, the same equipment that is able to see the rainbow, and then you place them, side by side, or maybe a foot apart or something, 10 feet apart, and they are capturing the rainbow. Do you think that every part of that rainbow, every pixel of that rainbow will show exactly the same way in both of them? Would they see the same thing?
sure, I don't know. I still don't understand what is.
The thing is in how, just like the sound that we're talking about, if a tree falls in the forest, it's about how we perceive those things.
Yes, that's still different, though.
No, well,
Like,
it is different, but
but if you're saying if it's machines, they're gonna perceive it exactly the same way if they're calibrated the same.
yeah, well, they won't. They won't, because they are not sitting on top of each other. They are not in the same spot, and that's where I'm going.
Well, if you're saying they're looking at the same thing, I
They are
mean,
looking
you're
at the same
assuming
thing.
they're in the same place. You have to specify that.
No, when you said they're in the same place, I said they are next to each other. Even if
Well, if
they're-
you say they're you didn't say they're next to each other. If
So
you say
where are
they're
they?
well, you could say the same machine. You put it next to it, and bring the other one and put it exactly where it was.
No, I mean they are looking at it at the same time. That's what
Well,
I mean.
you did specify. That's what
Oh,
I'm saying. There's
okay.
details you have to say for
I
me
think-
to interpret it in that
I
sense.
think you are hearing what you want to hear. It's okay. That's enough of that one. Let's move on to our main thing today. So today I want to share a few statistics with you, and then I want to ask you a question here. There was a study conducted by at the University of Queensland in Australia, Brisbane, Australia, and they found that blonde women who have blonde hair, blonde women on average, they earn 7% higher salaries than redheads and brunettes. Now the study compared everything else, and I think they studied over 13,000 women. And in the study, they said they tried to normalize all the other factors. So factors such as height, weight, education, or something has a difference. Has no part to play in this. They just look at the color of their hair, and they found that women who are blonde, they tend to earn 7% higher salaries than brunettes or redheads. That's University of Queensland. All right, at Duke University. Another study found that people with what they call matured faces, their faces are matured. they tend to have more career success in the workplace than people that are considered having baby faces.
Well, yeah, that makes more sense to me though.
Why does it make more sense?
Because whether, and it comes back to the perception you brought up before, whether you
Yeah.
like or not, someone who's seen or perceived as more mature, they're gonna give them or trust them more in a sense, or give them more responsibility. I think, at least for me, when I think of that.
So there was a study also from Duke. Then one more. There's one at Yale. A Yale study. They found out that both male and female scientists at Yale, both of them, when they want to hire other scientists,
Mm-hmm.
they are more likely to hire male scientists. This is both male and female scientists. When they want to hire other scientists, they are more likely to hire male scientists, and also, even when they hire female scientists, they tend to pay the male scientists about $4,000 more than the female scientists. So, if you look at all of this, we ask you what's going on. What do you think is going on?
That first one, I don't really know. But the scientist one, I don't know if it has to do with you still have to look at the percentage of like male to female of scientists too, because if you there might be more candidates than a male than female, so that is going to in itself increase the likelihood of hiring a male. But something like that, I don't know if that itself has to do with it, or there's probably
I'm sure
other
they
factors
would
as
have
well.
factored those into this study, so that maybe they have equal number of male and female scientists that they are looking at, or something like that. So, but anyway, all of those, it seems like a lot of those kind of point to the fact that we make decisions, human beings in general, we tend to make decisions very, very blindly, and we don't know it. we think we are rational, we think we are objective in many of the decisions we make, but we do not realize that most of our decisions are actually driven by a lot of factors that are maybe out of our own control. And this is where the issue of biases and prejudices come into play. You know, all of us think we see things as they are. Then going back to the teaser when we talked about, if you see a rainbow, is it the same? So we all think we see things as they are. We want to be objective. We think we see things as they are. But the truth is that we don't see things as they truly are. We see things as we are. Now, research has shown that a lot of us have these lenses, this filter that we put on unconsciously. We all wear it all the time. We have filter through which we see the world.
Right.
And those filter determines what we see. I've heard stories, for example, about witnesses to a crime. When police are talking to witnesses to a crime and how sometimes the testimony of the witnesses could be different.
Yeah.
Could be different from what they see, because everybody see what's kind of important to them. Yeah. So that's the thing. So let me ask you this question: what's your biggest pet peeve?
Pet peeve?
Yeah.
Probably
pet
when,
peeves, right?
well, yeah,
Okay.
when people don't clean up after themselves, probably, maybe.
Okay.
I don't know if it's biggest, but that's the first one that comes to mind right now.
All right. When people don't clean about that themselves. All right. So, why do you think that's a pet peeve for you?
I don't know. I haven't thought that much about it.
So, people don't clean about. Give an example of not cleaning about after themselves. Is it in the living room?
Well,
in the
I mean,
bathroom,
like, probably like roommates in college, if they like,
Okay.
they'll eat something and just leave the plate out or something, or not clean up after they've used something, or put it back how it was, basically.
Why does it bug you? Is their plate?
Well, what if it's not their plate? What if it's my plate?
Well, did that happen to your plate?
Well, yeah, it's been both. It's been my plate and it's been not my plate.
Okay. So when it was not your plate, did it bother you as much?
I mean, it's almost as equal. I
Yeah.
mean, slightly more when it is my plate, yeah, because it's my stuff. But
Yeah.
it's just like,
But it still bugs you when it's not your plate.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. That's why I'm asking, do you know why?
I don't know. I wouldn't say I know why, but I would say it just doesn't make sense in my mind to
Yeah.
just leave it out because if it's like food, it's gonna get crusted and it's gonna get dirty. It's not gonna use it again. So you have to clean it before you use it. So might as well just put it in. You're saving yourself time for later. It's if you forget, yeah, it makes sense. But
So you said something moments ago. You said that doesn't make sense for them to do that. See, I'm guessing that means it doesn't make sense to you, right?
well, yes, yeah.
What if it makes sense to them to leave their plate out?
I don't get a world where it makes sense to them.
You don't get a world.
I don't. In what world would it make sense for you to leave unless you're planning on eating food later? And even still, then this like your plate, if it's dirty, it's still gonna be dirty. So just rinse it off or put it in the sink or something.
Okay. See, that's the thing. Our lives, our life experiences, all the experiences every one of us have had from when we were babies, even from when we were in our mother's womb. There are interactions that we pick up from the womb when we were born, the way we were raised, and all of those kind of life experiences in general shape the filter with which we see the world.
Yeah.
It shapes that filter. So the example you gave about somebody who doesn't clean up after themselves, that person probably grew up in an environment or in a home where that's okay. And nobody bothered to either correct them or tell them, you need to clean up after yourself. And they didn't see that as anything. Or it's even possible, and here's the funny thing, it's even possible that maybe they grew up in an environment where they are always being corrected to pick up after themselves. But guess what? They just know.
Now that they have freedom, they just choose.
Exactly. They close their ear to it. It bugs them. They will do it grudgingly. But like you said, now that they're on their own, no, they just say, I can do what I want. I don't have to do what my parents told me to do because I'm not home anymore. And that's why you can see people who grew up in the same home, even twins, even completely identical twins who look alike, who behave alike. Maybe their physiology is almost the same. Their DNA or whatever call it are practically the same. That they grew up in the same home and they are brought up by the same parents, and one may have, as they grew up, a different worldview from the other one. Because maybe the correction from the parents, one of them, because of their makeup and personality, they will see that and say, okay, it's a good correction, and they will follow it. The other one may just be kind of rebellious and say, you know what, well, I guess I have to abide by their rules when I'm living here, but they are doing it grudgingly. They don't like it. So once they are out of the place, guess what? They do whatever they want.
Right.
Yeah. So life experiences in general, combined with our physical makeup, our own physiological makeup, can produce a million different kind of scenarios while we respond or react to different things.
Right.
So that's the thing. Some of the statistics I share with you, just shows that prejudice and bias is all around us. It's everywhere. And when you talk to some people, in fact, if you ask most people and ask them point blank, are you a biased person? What do you think they will say?
Probably no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think anyone will agree that they are biased. But the truth is that we all are.
Well, yeah, everyone has some kind of inherent bias.
We do.
Yeah.
We do, because once again, we just see the world differently. We see things differently, and when we see things that does not align with whatever is inside of us in our belief system, it evokes these negative emotions, and we think it's not right. But other people will see the same thing, experience the same thing, and guess what? It doesn't do anything for them. No, it's okay for them. And so bias or prejudices show up in everywhere. Everywhere we find ourselves, you see it in the way people are hired in the workplace. Now, I'm sure you've seen this. A lot of employer will write where equal opportunity hiring practices and things like that.
Right.
Yes, that's a stated policy of the organization.
Mm-hmm.
But guess what? Who lives out these policies? It's human beings.
Mm-hmm.
It's human beings with biases and prejudices. And I have even seen instances where there may be a lot of training. No, a lot of in training for people to be able to not be prejudiced or not be biased.
Oh, yeah.
But this is something that is built into each one of us. We can change, but it's not just by just going through a training.
Mm-hmm.
It's something that is a constant daily intentional effort to be aware of those biases and to not allow them to control how we do things,
Right.
how we engage. So it shows up in hiring. There was another study. I don't remember where that one came from, where they have resumes. They actually send exactly the same resume, exactly the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
The same resume formatted the same way, and they submitted them to the same job.
Mm-hmm.
Similar experiences, similar everything, with just a few differences. The only differences was some of them have the picture of the people. We have a headshot.
Mm-hmm.
So they found out that the ones that have headshots, that people tend to be biased towards some kind of people that they shortlist. Even though, like you said, the experiences and their backgrounds, their education, they're exactly the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
In other instances, it's not the pictures, they didn't put pictures, it's just the names. Exactly the same resume, they change the names.
Mm-hmm.
Now they will have maybe John Smith in one, and they will have something like Lakeisha Williams in another one, something like that. And they begin to see differences in the way that the recruiters and people who are dealing with these people, how they tend to prefer some names over other ones. Mm-hmm. Now, if you ask those people if they are being consciously biased, they will tell you no.
Right.
They will tell you no, but there's something in us. There's something in us as human beings because of our life experiences that we associate some people or some things with threats. And that thing in us that wants to survive, that just want to be alive or survive, unconsciously kicks in and sees some people as a threat and see other people as non-threatening. Mm-hmm. And we gravitate towards the people. I don't know.
Yeah, and culture has a lot to do with that too. Like you said, on how you grew up, and even this, like, if it could be like two similar people, but one maybe looks like someone you grew up with or that you didn't like. So immediately when you see that person, you're gonna have some sort of feeling towards them, whether they did anything to you or not. So,
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. It reminds me, and I don't know if this is something I even want to share here. When you said that, it reminds me of an experience I had. This was maybe about 5 or 6 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I was doing a seminar in Spokane, Washington. And I remember it was a seminar on emotional intelligence, public seminar. There may be about 50 to 60 people in the room. And at the end of the class, this lady, everybody else, I was packing up my stuff. Everybody was leaving. And this lady stayed behind, just stayed behind and waited, sat down while everybody left. After everybody left, she came to me and she just said, "Sonny, I really want to thank you for the class. That it really helped me see a lot of things differently." Then she told me her story. She said, this morning, this was at the end of the day, it's an all-day seminar.
Right.
So this morning when you started speaking, and usually when I start speaking in those days, I would joke about my accent, that I grew up in Nigeria and things like that. Initially, I would tell them I grew up in St. Louis, then tell them I grew up in Nigeria.
Yeah.
And then she said the moment you started speaking this morning, he said before you even told us you grew up in Nigeria, she said, I knew you were from Nigeria. And she said, I knew because I used to date a guy from Nigeria. And she said, now I was listening to this guy, and one day the guy molested me. And my heart just went out for her. I was almost crying. She said the guy molested me, and she said it was a very, very painful experience that I went through at the time that I've tried to forget. I have to forget. He said, but when you started speaking this morning, the moment I hear the way you speak, that's what I remember. He said, that's the pain that came back. And she said, I almost left. In fact, she said, I wanted to really pick up my bag and leave the class and not come back. She said the reason I didn't leave, I think the sitting in the room was very awkward. It was a long benches with 10, 12 people. And she said she was right in the middle of one of them. So she would disturb a lot of people if she had gotten up. And she said that's the reason she just endure and tried to overcome that. And then she said, we're talking about emotional intelligence. So she said, a lot of things you shared today really helped me in that area. I just wanted to say thank you. And that's the funny thing, like you were saying. It may be something about somebody before that you have encountered.
Right.
Somebody you didn't like, or something that happened to you that was traumatic experience for you. And then you see a behavior, or you see something from somebody else that had nothing to do with that person. And then it brings that up.
Right.
Yeah. So you see that in we're talking about hiring, you see in performance evaluation, how people are favored. More importantly, when we talk about a lot of the racial issues we have had, especially here in the United States, that's really what's driving most of it.
Right.
It is what's driving most of it. That's why, for example, a police officer will stop somebody of color and almost immediately think they are criminals or something. And I'm sure you've heard the story before that most black families have they have the discussion with their children about how to conduct themselves because of the way people may be perceived. That happens a lot. When COVID happened, we see something similar with people that look like they're from Asia, that they look like they are they look Chinese or something. That's what people say. And you hear stories all over the country where people are attacking people, because they blame China for COVID-19, and now there are these Chinese people all around here, and they are venting out on them. Meanwhile, many of the people they are attacking, they are not. Yes, they may have those features. They are not. Well, maybe they may have the Chinese, but most of them were born here. They are Americans. You see,
and
all
even
of
if
this
they are Chinese directly from China, that doesn't mean they have anything to do with
exactly.
Yeah.
So those are the kind of things. So some people act it out, and that's one of the things. So we are talking about the instances where people can act out some of those prejudices and biases. That's the last couple of examples we have given. But more often than not, in majority of us, we don't unconsciously act them out for people to see like that. It's very subtle. It's subtle, like we say. It's in decisions we make. It's in how we see someone. No, I will tell you this, and I've shared with you and your siblings sometimes this. There was a time when, if I'm walking on the street, and I see somebody coming towards me with their pants sagging. Unconsciously, immediately in my head, I'm thinking bad person, criminal, cross to the other side of the street.
Right.
Something like that. Now, have I seen them commit a crime? No, I haven't. But the picture, I have this picture in my head that people who are not well dressed, who are not properly dressed, they are up to no good. And it has nothing to do. I shared that sometimes. Somebody said, "Oh, it's because of what you've been fed about African Americans." And I said, "No, this is not about African Americans. This is not about." I grew up in Africa where everyone's black. All of us are black, and I had the same before I came over here to the United States. I had the same feeling about people who just look haggard, who don't dress well, people who wear a lot of necklace, for example. That's another thing for me. I'm thinking, what do you need all that for? No, something is wrong. Those are the kind of things. Those are biases and prejudices that I know on a daily basis I'm continually dealing with, because I've realized them. I've come to realize that those are biases that I have.
Right.
You know, we're talking about racism and things here, and I always hear that what we call racism here is not, it's not an American problem. It's just a human problem. Human discriminate everywhere you find human beings.
Right.
I gave the example that, you know, I come from Nigeria. We have the same thing over there. We don't call it racism because we're all the same race. We call it tribalism. It's the same thing. It's tribalism because it pits one tribe against the other, one ethnic group against the other one. No, the Nigerian Civil War that was fought in the 1960s, over 1 million people died, was because of racial differences, or, well, ethnic differences,
Right.
tribal differences. And people kill themselves for nothing. And those are the kind of things that you just see how it drives us as human beings, how it makes us do things that, you know, we shouldn't be doing. So
Yeah. And I think it comes down to, like we always bring this up, is having the self-awareness to recognize that's how you are. But also, I think if it's like in a workplace or decision-making for work, surrounding yourself with people who also are diverse, whether it be in race or thought, but also who can recognize that within each other and point it out, and so that they can together come up with a more objective like point of view or things like that. So
I agree. But do you think that's very easy to do in a workplace?
well, no, it's always easier said than done.
Yeah, it's not. Imagine if you know, you have a work team, you have maybe an African person, you have an Asian person, you have a Caucasian, you have a Latino, you have different people, and the boss comes on and say, okay, all of us, we know we are racial differences, all of us have these biases and prejudices. We just want to bring everything out to the surface, no hiding anything. So everyone, you should call out anybody else if you see anything.
Yeah, I don't mean like call out. I mean like when it comes to making a decision, making sure that there's different points of view is a probably better way of saying
Yeah, well, that's part of it. Yes.
Yeah. For someone you're closer with, you can definitely say, hey, call this out if you see this.
Yeah.
But I think just having different points of view in itself kind of eliminates certain biases by doing that.
Yeah, you can. No, I agree. I definitely agree. And that's one of the reasons why teams are better composed of people from different backgrounds, different ethnic groups, different life experiences, so that they have those checks and balances with one another. But the thing is, I think the level of trust within the team also comes into play. Because if, for example, what we have just shared is a good idea, but what if somebody, one person that kind of feels different in the group, feels like, you know, it doesn't matter what I say, they are not going to listen to me, or they are not even going to consider it. So why bother?
Yeah.
So they may have a diverse perspective, they just keep quiet and they won't say anything.
And that just comes back to culture, which I think we talked about before, that if they have a culture of just not hearing people out or getting perspectives from everyone, that's going to affect everything. So
it definitely will. But anyway, so how do we go about this? This recognizing biases and dealing with them is a lifelong kind of a thing. But for me, at least, one of the things I've seen that help is just two simple things. The first one, I think is the biggest one, is really for every person, every one of us to recognize and to acknowledge that we have these biases. Because like we said at the beginning, a lot of people, if you ask them, will say, I'm not biased, I'm very objective. No.
Right.
Realizing that, you know, we're not talking about conscious bias. Most of these biases are unconscious.
Right.
Yeah, they are unconscious. We are not consciously saying I'm going to be prejudiced against this person. They are unconscious, and realizing that we have them and being aware of them and how we make decisions and how they can affect the way we make decisions. No, I think that's more than half of the battle won.
Right.
Just recognizing that we have it. And the second half of that is just to look for objective evidence. So if I see somebody with their pants sagging coming at me, and I'm thinking, okay, bad person, criminal.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's tough because there's almost no fully objective evidence for when it comes to dealing with people, though. Just because, like we said, it comes back to everyone's gonna, whether it's an article or study, everyone's gonna see things based on how they perceive things. So that is gonna affect how they word certain things, how they write an article, how they do certain things. So I think just find an objective as possible, but also just finding different viewpoints to serve and come to a conclusion from that is also important too.
No, you're right. You're right. Different viewpoints. But in addition, what I was trying to say is that when you don't have that benefit of those viewpoints around you, when you have to make a decision, when you have that feeling of, I'm feeling this way about this person. What I mean by looking for objective evidence is by asking, okay, where is this coming from? Where is this feeling coming from? So I use
more like self-evaluation.
Exactly. I was using the example of I'm about to cross paths with someone with sagging pants, and automatically in my head I'm thinking, bad person. So I will be asking myself is, where is the evidence for that? Have I seen them commit a crime? I have not seen them commit a crime yet. Or have I seen them make a move towards me like they want to attack me or something?
But this just came to my mind. But someone could say that being objective would be to cross the street, because I guess I'm just thinking out loud, because it's more likely statistically that someone who's sagging their pants might be a criminal than someone who's not.
Where is the statistics?
Well, I don't. Maybe that's the wrong word. Maybe not statistically, but someone could say that it's more likely for someone who's sagging their pants statistically to commit a crime. So based on that, that's almost more objective because there's statistics or there's evidence to back it up.
That's what I'm saying. So, where is the evidence?
No, I'm giving a scenario. So if someone is saying that, let's say they've researched that, they've come to that conclusion. So for them. for them, they have this reasoning to back that.
No, but truly, what I found is this: when we look for that evidence, because imagine this, I know what you're saying, but the truth is that many people or many of us who behave like that, we have not done that study, we have not researched that study. It's just a feeling that we have, you know, in Nigeria, in Yoruba language, we have the words we call some of those kind of people, like agbero or something like that. It's like tout in the motor park or something like that. No, they're unruly, they're loud, they fight, they cause trouble and things like that. People want to get away from them. So they're the one that look like they dress haphazardly, and they are not well put together. So at least for me, thinking back, as I began to think about this, I know for me that was where those impressions come from. So even when I get here and begin to see people with sagging pants and things like that, it's the same picture from those ones that come to my head. So what I'm trying to say is, when we get those pictures in our heads and recognize it, in most instances, we don't pay attention to why we are feeling the way we are feeling. We just know. We sense a danger when we see the person or when we see something and we cross over. But when we begin to make the effort to challenge the way we feel, to ask myself, have I seen any evidence? No. And I know what you are saying, that, well, what if the person have done the research? But in most cases, they have not done the research.
Yeah, and that, again, it comes down to, I think we put in here, it is more so of the confirmation bias, that they found something that matches with how, in a sense, they already felt. So
exactly,
now that they have a reasoning a reasoning to back that they can almost act upon it. That
Yeah,
gives them,
yeah. And I'm glad you brought up confirmation bias, because when we say look for objective evidence, what tends to happen for most people is that even for the evidence we are looking for, we are biased. We are not objective in the evidence, because when we see an evidence that says, okay, what I'm feeling or what I'm believing about this person is not right, because it goes against what we think, there are people who just reject that evidence. They say, that's not true.
right.
And then they continue to look until they find one. It may even be 1 or 2 out of 100 that they find that support what they believe.
Right.
That's the one they will go towards. That's the one they will gravitate towards and say, okay, yeah, this is it. And that's the funny thing about this. And the thing about, I think we discussed it in the previous episode about what social media feeds to us, what we like and things like that. And I think it looks like the world we live in, because of social media, tend to help us perpetuate those biases. Because the biases that people have, it's evident in the kind of thing they look at, the kind of posts they engage with on social media.
Right.
And then the algorithm gives them more of that. So it feeds their confirmation bias, kind of. And they don't see evidence to the contrary. And that's why you can have 2 warring parties about the same thing. You know, if they are engaging on social media, both sides are saying different things. They are saying what they already believe. They don't see the other side. So it becomes much more intentional on our part to make sure that we are looking for information. Contrary, I want to find contrary information. I want to find information that is different from what I know already. And I want to see how much of that information is out there. Right. And I think looking for evidence that way and continually challenging our own biases, looking for evidences, hopefully eventually we'll get there one day.
Yeah. Anything else we wanted to
No, I think that's it.
That?
I think we have fully exhausted this one, I think.
Okay. Well, guys, this has been another episode of Chris, the podcast. As always, give us a like on YouTube, rate us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and we'll see you guys next time.
Thank you. See you next time.